I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other, but the other will solve the problem.
Tensions between the United States and Iran have once again escalated after Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, rejected a letter from Donald Trump calling for negotiations over Iran's nuclear program. In a public response, Khamenei dismissed the proposal, labeling it as an attempt by bullying governments to impose their will on Iran. This latest exchange underscores the ongoing power struggle between Washington and Tehran, with both sides unwilling to back down. But what does this mean for the future of Iran's nuclear ambitions? Can diplomacy still prevail, or is a military confrontation becoming inevitable? Donald Trump, who previously withdrew the U.S. from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018, recently sent a letter to Khamenei, urging Iran to return to the negotiating table. The former president framed his request as an ultimatum, stating, "I've written them a letter, saying I hope you're going to negotiate because if we have to go in militarily, it's going to be a terrible thing for them." Trump made it clear that he prefers a diplomatic resolution, but he also left no doubt that military action is on the table if Iran refuses to cooperate. In a bold response to Trump's ultimatum, Khamenei made it clear that Iran will not be intimidated into submission. Addressing Iranian officials, he stated, "Some bully governments insist on negotiations, but their goal is not to solve issues. They want to dominate and impose their own expectations." The Iranian leader accused Washington of deliberately setting new conditions they knew Iran would never accept. He argued that the U.S. was using negotiations as a pretext to impose new restrictions beyond nuclear matters. "They demand limitations on our defense capabilities, our regional alliances, and our missile program. They tell us, don't do this, don't meet that person, don't produce that item. Your missile range should not exceed a certain limit." Is this what they call negotiation? This is nothing but coercion. Iran has long maintained that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. Yet the U.S. continues to push the narrative that Tehran is pursuing nuclear weapons. Khamenei reiterated that Iran's nuclear program is non-military, citing his religious decree fatwa, prohibiting the development of nuclear arms. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also rejected Washington's approach, emphasizing that Iran would not engage in talks under threats and sanctions. Speaking to AFP, he stated, "Iran will not negotiate under maximum pressure. This policy has failed, and it will continue to fail." Araghchi also pointed out the hypocrisy of the U.S. position, stating that while Washington accuses Iran of violating the 2015 nuclear deal, JCPOA, it was the U.S. that abandoned the agreement first. They say Iran has not fulfilled its commitments under the JCPOA. But have they fulfilled theirs? The United States violated the deal, imposed sanctions, and now expects Iran to comply unconditionally? This is not diplomacy. This is extortion. Khamenei also addressed Europe's role in the nuclear negotiations, criticizing Britain, France, and Germany for failing to uphold their commitments under the JCPOA. "You say that Iran has not fulfilled its commitments under the JCPOA. Okay, but have you fulfilled yours? We followed the deal for a year after the U.S. abandoned it. And what did we get? More sanctions, more betrayals." Tehran had initially remained compliant with the deal, but after continued economic pressure, it had no choice but to advance its uranium enrichment program. Iran now possesses stockpiles of uranium enriched to 60%, just short of weapons-grade levels. However, Iranian officials continue to emphasize that their nuclear program remains peaceful. Iran has long maintained that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes, despite growing international concerns over its uranium enrichment levels. The collapse of the 2015 nuclear deal, which Trump withdrew from, led Iran to accelerate its nuclear development, bringing it dangerously close to weapons-grade capabilities. Khamenei's rejection of Trump's letter is about more than just nuclear talks. It's about Iran's sovereignty and its refusal to bow to American pressure. The Iranian leader believes that agreeing to talks under U.S. threats would set a precedent, forcing Iran to compromise on its missile program, regional alliances, and military activities. Iran's growing economic and military partnerships with Russia and China have also reduced its reliance on Western diplomacy. This shift in global alliances means that Tehran is less willing to negotiate, especially when it believes Washington is acting in bad faith. As tensions rise, Russia's role in the crisis has come under scrutiny. Some Western analysts speculated that the Kremlin might have influenced Tehran's rejection of Trump's letter. However, Moscow has officially denied any involvement in Iran's foreign policy decisions. Iran is a sovereign country and independently formulates its position on key foreign policy issues, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov stated. Last week, Russia offered to mediate between Iran and the U.S., emphasizing the importance of constructive negotiations. Peskov stressed that Moscow is committed to a peaceful resolution of the Iranian nuclear issue and dismissed the idea that Russia had a role in Iran's response to Trump. While the Kremlin maintains neutrality, its close military and economic ties with Iran suggest that it has a vested interest in preventing U.S. influence over Tehran. Iran's growing cooperation with Russia and China has given it greater leverage, reducing its dependency on Western diplomatic channels. The rejection of Trump's letter comes at a time of heightened tensions in the region. Iran and Israel have exchanged direct attacks for the first time in years. Trump has openly supported Israel's right to strike Iran's nuclear facilities if necessary. Iran's alliances with Russia and China are strengthening, with joint military drills planned in the coming weeks. The U.S. continues to impose economic sanctions, putting immense pressure on Iran's economy. These factors create a volatile situation where diplomacy seems less likely, and military conflict becomes a growing possibility. While Khamenei's response appears final, some diplomatic experts believe there is still room for negotiations, but only under different circumstances. Trump and his allies argue that Iran cannot be trusted, and that maximum pressure is the only way to force meaningful change. They believe that Iran is on the brink of developing nuclear weapons, and allowing it to continue unchecked would be a global security risk. Tehran only understands strength, not diplomacy, so a military threat is necessary to push them into talks. The 2015 nuclear deal was too weak, and a tougher, more enforceable agreement is needed. Iran sees the situation very differently, arguing that the U.S. broke its promise by pulling out of the nuclear deal, so why trust them again? Any new deal would likely demand restrictions on Iran's missile program, which they will never accept. The U.S. is using nuclear negotiations as an excuse to weaken Iran's military and regional influence. Other world powers, including Russia and China, have criticized Trump's approach and are working to mediate discussions. The European Union still hopes to revive parts of the original nuclear deal and prevent escalation. The Kremlin recently denied rumors that it influenced Iran's decision to reject Trump's letter, but it has openly supported Iran's resistance to U.S. pressure. With Iran refusing to negotiate under pressure and Trump making veiled military threats, the risk of a direct U.S.-Iran confrontation is increasing. 3 possible scenarios could unfold. If Iran continues enriching uranium, the U.S. and Israel may take military action against its nuclear sites. This could lead to retaliatory strikes from Iran on U.S. bases in the Middle East, a broader regional conflict involving Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iranian-backed groups, disruptions to global oil markets, triggering economic consequences worldwide. If Trump were to win re-election, his approach could change depending on whether he seeks diplomacy under new terms. Iran's leadership showing willingness to talk under different conditions. Russia and China stepping in as mediators to broker a deal. If neither side makes a move, Iran will continue advancing its nuclear program. and the U.S. will keep tightening sanctions. This could further cripple Iran's economy, leading to domestic unrest. Push Iran closer to China and Russia, making U.S. influence in the Middle East weaker. Maintain the status quo, but with constant underlying threats of conflict. Iran's rejection of Trump's nuclear negotiation offer highlights the deep mistrust between the two nations. While diplomacy remains an option, both sides are unwilling to compromise, making a peaceful resolution difficult. With tensions rising and military threats increasing, the next few months could determine whether this crisis leads to negotiations, continued standoff, or full-scale conflict. One thing is clear: the world is watching closely.